Do you have expensive taste on a DIY budget? I know I do. I'm going to show you 27 home decor items that you can make for pennies on the dollar. Hi, I'm Lisa Marie. If you are new, welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you so much. If you want to craft your best life along with me, then let's get started. I found this beautiful fall picture on the Kirkland's website, but it was $40, and I think I can do that for less. I'm going to use this picture frame and picture that I found at Hobby Lobby on 70% off clearance. And it's got good bones. It was $6.49 before the clearance price. I am going to take it and I'm going to first of all get rid of those hangers and rope because they're on the wrong side. This needs to be more long ways going up and down. I'm just going to move them around. I'm going to use the Waverly ink chalk paint, and I'm going to cover the whole entire front of the sign. And I just took a little more than one coat, just touch-ups here and there, but that took care of that. Then I'm going to touch up the frame and make sure everything is solid. Now in the original picture, it was a wood grain frame, but I really didn't want to sand it down that far, so I'm going to go with the black. And then I have this really cool, like buffalo check paper that I got at Hobby Lobby. It was on 40% off clearance in the teacher section, and it's like wrapping paper. I'm just going to use some Mod Podge, and I'm going to put that on after I cut out a piece that would fit, and use my brayer, which is in my Amazon store, to roll it on and try to get rid of any wrinkles. Once I get the whole thing on there, then it's ready for me to start working on the embellishments. So the first thing is a tag, and I had this little metal tag from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint it with the white chalk paint from Folk Art, and then I'm going to use a ruler to figure out 1/8 of an inch all the way around so I can connect the dots and draw the line, and the tag will say Happy Fall. And I'm just going to use a black permanent marker and just freehand it. I have several different wood pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and there's one that's a little larger, so I'm going to start with that one, and I'm going to use my little Cricut spatula to remove everything on the back. And actually that was the front, but I'm going to use that as the back, and I'm going to use the pumpkin and the cashew colors to paint this particular pumpkin. I'm going to start off with the pumpkin color, cover the whole thing, and then I'm going to use my little mister, which is a water spray, and I'm going to get it wet because then I'm going to add the cashew and create the highlights. Once I'm done, I will use the truffle color paint to create the contour and the shadow. And what that does is makes the pumpkin appear kind of 3D, and you can see the little curves in the pumpkin. And I just keep playing with it until it looks the way I want, and I just keep going back and forth between the cashew and the truffle to get that three-dimensional look that I'm going for. Moving on to the next pumpkin, I am going to just remove those 3 pieces on the front that make it a little thicker, and I'm going to use the back with my agave chalk paint to cover the whole thing, and then I'm going to pull in some steel, but I'm not too happy with how the steel looks, so I end up switching to white because I like the way that highlights better. I'm going to pull back in the truffle for some shading, and that is going to make this one look 3D as well, and I love the way it turned out. Moving on to the third pumpkin, I'm going to take another one that's the same size, but I'm going to actually take a blade and I'm going to cut it smaller. I'm going to use my Kills White primer paint to paint the back side of it all white, and then I'll take that blade, cut off the edges, because what I'm trying to do is have small, medium, and large pumpkins stacked on top of each other. Once I finish cutting it, I'm going to sand all the way around the edges to make it nice and smooth. After I finish with all of the white, I'm going to use my steel color chalk paint to create that shadow and contour, because it's the opposite when you do a white pumpkin. You don't really need highlights because the white is already there. Then also take my truffle and I'm going to fill in the stem, because this is the pumpkin that you're going to see the whole thing, and I wanted it to, be painted correctly from the top to the bottom. The next step is to place the pumpkins on the actual picture and determine exactly where I'm going to hot glue them in place. Now mine is a little bit narrower than the original, so I just had to make it work. Now that the pumpkins are attached, I need to get a piece of twine and I need to hang my Happy Fall tag. I'm just going to use that hole that's already there at the top of the pumpkin, and I'm going to secure it, and I'm going to hide the knot behind the stem with a little bit of hot glue. And then I'm going to take them and I want to put a bow on it, but I don't want to put it way up high because that's not what it looked like in the picture. So I'm going to tie the two strands together and then add a bow right on top of that. I'm going to trim the twine and then I'm going to tack down the ends so that they lay exactly the way they did in the picture. On the Kirkland's one, there was a leaf and there were some cute little stems and things like that, and a little white kind of curvy thing. So I'm just going to use this little garland that I got at Hobby Lobby on 40% off, and the leaf I had from Dollar Tree from a packet from last year. And then I'm going to use a little string from a mop head and literally just make the little white curve and do the best I can to make it look like the original. I'm so happy with how it turned out. No, it's not exactly like the original, but super close. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you are enjoying this video, hit that like button. It helps YouTube to show my video to more people, and I really appreciate it. Thanks. This beautiful wood round with the name on it and the magnolia leaves is a picture that our granddaughter found on Pinterest, and she said, I want this. And I knew I could make it for less because I looked around and I found them for this size, which is a large one, anywhere from $76 to $90+ online. So we can do this for less. I picked up this wood round. It's 1 inch by 2 feet by 2 feet. I got it at Home Depot and it was about $17 and change. It's so solid, oh my gosh. And so I'm going to use that for the first piece. I'm going to use my Apple Barrel Burnt Umber paint. You can get that at Walmart. And I'm going to water it down in a little cup here. And I'm going to use it as stain. Now, here's a couple reasons why. 1, it doesn't smell. 2, it dries very quickly. And 3, look, would you know this wasn't stained? Look at how the beautiful grain of the wood shows through. So I just put it on. I'm using a foam brush that I got a big package off Amazon, and it's a great deal, by the way. I ordered this finishing wax by Jolie off of Amazon, and I'm just going to use my really nice brush that's good for wax. My daughter got it for me on Amazon, and I'm not sure what it's called, but I think I have similar ones in my store. Anyway, I'm going to apply that to the wood on all sides and the edges, and then I'm going to get out my square, and I'm going to start measuring. I need to figure out how big my letters need to be and where the center is. I didn't want to draw crossbar lines on it, so I taped some pieces of twine and found my center while using my square so I could put a little teeny pencil dot. I used my Cricut to design the word Vivian and Renee using the fonts that I chose. You can use whatever fonts you like. And if you had sticker letters, you could do that too, but I was going for a very specific look and I knew they had it in my Cricut design space. So then I'm just transferring it directly on to the wood round. I centered the word Vivian. Then I'm going to take the word Renee and it's going to go just below and off to the right a little bit because that's how the original one looked. Now they use like wood cutouts for their words, and although I have a machine to do that, I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So I thought that the vinyl was going to be just fine, and I'm using the permanent vinyl for this. Now, one problem, because I put the wax on, the letters didn't want to stick. So that's just a lesson that I learned, is don't put the wax on where the letters are going to go. So you guys can avoid that. Normally I would add a hanger to the back, but this was pretty heavy. So we went over to Lowe's and I found this really cool picture hanger for heavy pictures. It would hold like 75 pounds, which is overkill, but I thought better safe than sorry. So I'm going to give that to them. I also found this gorgeous magnolia garland at Five Below. You guys have to go to that store sometimes. They have so many things we can use for crafting. And so now I'm going to get out my polyacrylic finish and I'm going to put that over the whole thing. And I have to do that because of the letters not sticking as good as I want them to. And I like it anyway because it does give it a nice finish. And I did not do it on the back because it's going to be against the wall, but I did put little felt rounds on there so that it wouldn't scratch up the wall while they were hanging it or taking it down. You guys, I love this. I'm so thrilled with how it came out. It's huge and they absolutely love it too. And altogether, I spent somewhere around $30, which is a lot less than $76 to $90. It's amazing what you can do if you make it yourself. If you enjoyed this video and this is your kind of thing, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you can become part of my YouTube family and you'll always be notified when my next video goes live. So our granddaughter wanted a sunburst mirror, and my friend Allie, who has a channel called Actually Allie, made one, and I remembered it. So I contacted her and I said, hey, I think I need to make this mirror. So she gave me some great tips. Of course, I watched her video, which I'm showing you a little bit of on the screen there. I'll also have a link down to her channel and video because she's really talented and she helped me so much with this mirror. So I'm super excited. That's her finished mirror right there that you're looking at in the screen, and it's gorgeous. It's very similar to the one I made, but I did change it just a little bit. So you start off with just about 100 plus popsicle sticks. And so I did 26 in the full size, and I just cut off the rounded edges on both sides. Then I did 26 and I cut them into 4.5-inch pieces. And then I also did 26, did those at 3 inches. And then the last 26 I did were 3.25 inches. Now these are the measurements that Allie gave me. My mirror was a little bigger than hers. My mirror was a 16-inch mirror, but I made it work. Now at the Dollar Tree, you can get popsicle sticks. They're 36 in a pack, and they're, you know, kind of the big ones. Not the ginormous ones, but the big ones. And so it wasn't that bad. I only had to get 3 packages to make it work. And I used, I think it was 104 altogether. I also sanded every one of these pieces after I cut them. And the way I cut them was with my miter shears. If you have good scissors, you can do that. My scissors aren't that great for cutting popsicle sticks. I decided to use my miter shears. Super easy. They're in my Amazon store. Anyway, and after I sanded everything, they looked really sweet, and I did all the edges as well. Now they also sell these little squares at the Dollar Tree, and they come 4 in a pack, and I used 14 of those, and I left the middle open because you really don't need anything in the middle. Once I knew that the big circle would fit on it, I taped all the pieces together so they wouldn't move. What I'm really going to need is about a 1-inch border around the mirror, and that's what I'm going to end up with when this is done. The first thing I'm going to need to do is figure out the exact center of this circle. So I'm going to use my square and a level, and I'm going to come up with the center. Put a little tack in the middle of the round piece that came with the mirror. And I tied some twine to it, and I tried to attach a pencil. That was kind of rough. So I went around, trying to make a perfect circle. I wanted it to be about 1 inch bigger than the circle because I wanted the wood to show. That was the whole point of that other wood. So it would be the mirror in the middle, that little wood circle about 1 inch, and then all the starburst pieces. And now I'm just tying the twine to the thumbtack, and then I'm going to attempt to tie it to the pencil and then trace all the way around, trying to keep it at 1 inch, which didn't work, so I had to do something else, and you'll see that in just a minute. Next, I'm going to hot glue all the seams of this wood so that it doesn't come apart before I cut the circle out. So my solution to getting that inch circle going around was to take a little popsicle stick, cut it into 1 inch, and then go around like I'm doing right now and just draw a line over the top and connect all the lines. And believe it or not, that worked really well. Just took a couple extra minutes, and I wish I'd just done that to begin with because it was super easy and definitely made a nice circle. When it came time to cut out the circle, I used my tin snips that I got from Amazon and a box cutter for some of the tighter pieces, and then I just took a nail file out and I went around the edges. You can use sandpaper too, of course. And then I was going to try to come up with a stain. So what I did was I used a combination of burnt umber paint from Apple Barrel and warm buff. I watered it down a bit to create more of a stain. And I just mixed them together, and then I just kept testing it on some scrap wood that I had of the same color. And then I really liked that. So I ended up putting it on because I didn't want it to be different from the popsicle sticks, which were actually a little darker than this wood. And this brought them pretty much to the same shade. So you just got to play around with that a little and make it match, or you could stain everything a different color completely. But we really wanted to keep the starburst part in the more natural looking wood. Now I'm placing the mirror on the top, and I'm drawing a circle where it's going to sit, and I'm using E6000 and hot glue and placing it right over the top. That way it'll hold immediately, and then it will hold forever with the E6000. And then the back, I'm just kind of reinforcing it with some hot glue in that little opening there, and that really keeps the thing together. The next thing I'm going to do is take some sisal rope that I got from burlapfabric.com. You could use any rope, or you could use this kind of rope. Even the twine at Dollar Tree or at Walmart would work. And I'm just going to hot glue it right around the edge of the mirror because I don't want you to see the edges. I want to camouflage that with some rope, and I'm going to go around 2 times and just make sure that you can't see that at all. Now we're going to go back to those popsicle sticks, and I'm going to take the 2 larger ones and I'm going to alternate between the 2. So I will literally just be going every other one, and they'll be next to each other, but they'll kind of start to angle around, as you can see here, because I need there to be a little bit of a gap between them, because then I'm going to take the 2 smaller sizes and I'll start on the openings and I will alternate those. Now what I'm doing is I'm using wood glue and hot glue to attach them so that there's a very good bond there. Now, before I finish off the back, I'm going to take a little piece of twine, knot the ends, and I'm going to hot glue it and put tape over it for the hanger. Then I'm going to cut a round piece of craft paper. I'm going to hot glue that right on. Now, I thought about something after I was done, and that was this is going to be hard to pick up. So I do add another little piece of rope. I'm going to cut a slit. I'm going to add another little piece of rope with a knot on each end. I'm going to hot glue it down, put the tape over it again with the hot glue, and then I'm going to fold back the pieces of the craft paper to cover it back up and glue those down. And then I'm going to cut a little piece of the craft paper to put both up at the top hanger and at that bottom piece. Now if you want to pick it up, you can hold the hanger and the little knotted rope, because otherwise you don't want to hold it by the popsicle sticks. Even though they're on good, they're just not very thick, and that would be a definite concern. And in the meantime, I started covering up the mirror because you could just see me as a reflection or the lights, and that's no fun. Now I'm adding those other 2 smaller pieces and I'm alternating. Now once I get all of those on there, I'm going to go around again with some more of that sisal rope, and I'm just hot gluing it right to the edges of where the popsicle sticks are, so you never see that. I'm going to go around 3 times, and I love it because that brought this from boho to modern farmhouse, in my opinion. And I really, really love the combination of the wood and the sisal rope. I think it's so pretty. I love how this turned out. It's a very large piece and it's gonna look beautiful. Mirrors like this sell for $100 and up. And doing this myself, I paid just about $30. I really hope you like it. And here's just a little bit more of a close-up shot. If you like any of the tools or craft supplies that I'm using that I happen to get at Amazon, don't forget to check out my Amazon store down in the description box, and they're all in. My granddaughter wanted this for her nursery, but she wanted bluebirds on the bottom instead of butterflies. I priced these online anywhere from $25 to $80, and I made it for just over $15. Pretty good deal. I found these adorable little bluebirds on Amazon. It came 6 in a pack. And then I'm using this little shower curtain ring from the Dollar Tree and a large bead that I happened to get off Amazon. And then also I ordered some embroidery hoops on Amazon. And this is the 10-inch hoop. And what I'm going to do is unscrew it and only use the inside piece. I'm going to take a nail file and I'm just going to sand it because it was a little bit rough at places. And I really didn't want to get a splinter. Next, I'm going to mix my Apple Barrel paints, burnt umber, and warm buff. And of course I'm going to water down my paper towel so that I can use this almost like a stain, and I'm going to paint it on and then rub off the excess. And then I'm going to use my little heat tool from Amazon to dry it so that I can go ahead and sand it and just distress it a teeny bit, because I just like that look. I've got beautiful greenery that I got from, gosh, I want to say Target, but I'm not sure. Anyway, you can get this a lot of places. And I just cut off the green leaves, and I'm using some white twine from the Dollar Tree. And what I'm going to do is thread, I have a plastic kind of embroidery needle. I'm going to thread the twine on to the needle, and I'm going to feed it into the middle of the bird from the bottom, and then tie a knot at the bottom, and then poke the twine all the way up, and that's how it's going to hang on the mobile. So you can see I'm just kind of deciding where I'm going to place the leaves now that it's attached to the little bird. And I'm going to do 3 sets of leaves. So I want both sides to be a leaf. So I'm going to hot glue right down the spine of the leaf on one side, and then take another one that matches in size and hot glue that one right to the top. And so it'll be the good sides will be facing out, and the bad sides, if you will, be facing in. And then I'll add an extra little dot of hot glue on each side just to keep them together. So every little bird will be hanging on twine with 3 sets of leaves going up towards the hoop. They're so cute. This was really easy. The hardest thing of all of this was making the hole in the bird. They're kind of hollow, and then it's hard to find the hole going through on the other side. So if you don't have something that's long enough to poke through, that's the hard part. So I did have to kind of rig something because my little needle was definitely too short. Now I'm just going to show you how I do one of the strands of the twine with the bird and the 3 sets of leaves, and then you'll see how to do the rest because they're all the same. You can see that all of my birds are done now, and I'm going to have 4 birds hanging around the outside and 1 coming down from the middle, so 5 total. Now the bead that I had, what I'm going to do is take my plastic needle, and I'm going to thread each of the strands through the bead, and I have to do it individually because they're kind of too wide to get through as a group. But I managed to do all 5 of them right through the center, which was exactly what I wanted. And then I will be able to take that and attach it to the shower curtain ring, and that's going to be what you hang it with. Now I forgot to film the part where I tied it all up, but I'll show you at the end a close-up of what that looks like. Now the shower curtain ring is clear, and I really didn't want it to be, so I used the exact same paint colors that I used for the hoop, and I painted the ring. I took the strands that were coming up out of the bead and I attached them to the shower ring, and then I wrapped another piece of twine all the way around the part that hangs between, and then I also wrapped it over the shower ring so that it would be very secure. And then I hot glued each strand to the inside of the hoop except the one going down the center, and made sure they were all hanging evenly. You guys, I love this. It's so pretty. Oh my gosh, you could put anything on the bottom that you want. Making 4 dupes from Antique Farmhouse. The first one is this Barkeeper round tray. This is a set of 2. I'm only going to make 1, and it was $92 for 2. So that's still $46 for 1. I'm going to use these paint stir sticks that I ordered on Amazon, and they don't have the curvy part, so I really like them. And then I used 2 of the Hot Wheel tracks from the Dollar Tree, Waverly Paint Ink and Steel, and then the Folk Art Paint Metallic Silver. And what I'm going to do is start off with my Kills White primer, and I'm going to do almost 3 coats on both sides of these tracks. Now I cut one of them in half, then I added the steel color over the top after I had done several coats. And that is just to cover that white, but you only need to do 1 coat of that, because then I'm going to take the ink color and with a stiff brush I'm just going to dab it all over, and I'm going to do that faux galvanized metal technique. Next comes white. I'm just going to dab that all over, both sides by the way, and then the metallic silver, and I'm going to dab that just to dull down the white and the black a little bit, and that's what kind of gives it that galvanized look. Now I'm going to take these two pieces of the track and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to attach them to each other. There's holes at both ends except for the one I cut, so I'm going to use my Crop-A-Dile, which is also from Amazon, and I'm going to make a hole on that other end so I have something to attach it with. Then I'm going to line them up and see how that's going to look, and I'm going to mark it, and I'm going to take a blade and cut off the raised piece because I want it to lay flat on top of the other one when I overlap them, and by getting rid of that little raised piece of the track I can accomplish that. And then I can use E6000 and hot glue combination and get those pieces to stick together. Then I'm going to take a clamp and hold them together because otherwise it just pops off until it dries. And then I'm temporarily going to put a clamp on the other side until I'm ready to glue it. And I'm going to draw a circle on my paper that's just on my desk because I need to create that wood base. So I'm going to use those paint stir sticks and I'm going to start cutting them with my miter shears from Amazon. And I'm using that circle that I drew on the paper as a way to determine how many pieces and how big I need them to be. And as I measure, I'm just drawing the lines where the circle will be. Now I'm going to glue them all together with a combination of hot glue and this liquid adhesive from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to wipe off the excess, and this is going to create my entire piece. Now I'm going to double check again the measurement. I'm going to put that ring over the top. I'm going to reinforce with some more glue. And then I'm going to use my blade and I'm going to start cutting off the excess around that circle. You just score it till it all comes off piece by piece. Next, I'm going to sand my wood. I want to get rid of the pencil marks and anything else. Then I'm going to take the Antique Wax by Waverly and I'm going to paint that on there and then wipe off the excess, basically to stain the wood. And I'm going to do that on both sides and around the edges. And now I'm going to take that ring that I created and I'm going to do a combination of hot glue and E6000 to attach it all the way around. Next, I'm going to take my steel paint, and where the wood shows on the bottom, I'm just going to paint that with the steel so it all looks cohesive. I'm going to take some wired jute cord from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to cut two pieces that will be the handles, and then I'm going to cut out of this tin baking pan from the Dollar Tree a couple of pieces that I'm going to wrap around each edge of those handles, and then I'm going to paint it all with the steel paint so it looks like it is metal that is welded on there, and the rope will actually look like a handle. And now I'm going to take my little tin pieces, wrap them around the edge of each side of that painted jute. And then once I'm done doing that and assembling them, I will hot glue them to each side of my tray. And I just use a little hot glue as I wrap it around the jute, and I attach it 2 times to make sure when I first start and at the end, that way it's on there good and it's not going to go anywhere. Next, I'm going to take these 2 little pop-up dots from the Dollar Tree stickers. I'm going to paint 2 of them steel. I'm going to cover the holes that were there on the tracks. And it's going to end up looking like, a rivet or a bolt that's there. And it just looks like it's supposed to be there. And now I'm going to attach those little handles. Now, they're not really functional, although you could pick it up because this is very light. But this is more of a decor piece than a functional piece. This is going to be just fine with hot glue. Of course, you could use E6000 if you really felt better about it. And after the handle's attached, this is complete. This was really fun to make, and I think it came out actually pretty cool, and I love that I used the Hot Wheel tracks. Item that I'm going to do are these wood roof metal Christmas cottages, and there's a set of 2. Theirs were $248, and I think they're a lot bigger than mine are, so that's probably why. But even so, that's a lot of money. Now, I found these little houses at Hobby Lobby. They were 40% off, so I bought a couple of them. And then I've got these extra popsicle sticks that I've had for a long time from the Dollar Tree. And I have some burnt umber apple barrel paint and some steel Waverly chalk paint. I'm going to mix them together and add a little teeny bit of water as well. Stir it up. And then I'm going to paint all of my sticks after I assemble them on the roof. The only thing I really needed to do to these houses is just create the wood roof. So I measured them. I used my miter shears from Amazon to cut these little popsicle sticks, which is super easy with them. And then I literally will hot glue them right to the roof. Now, the first one is super easy because there is no chimney. On the second one, I am going to have to cut a couple little pieces to size around the chimney, but it's really not a big deal. And then at the end, I might have a little hangover and I'll use some snips to go ahead and just cut those off. But literally, this is a super, super easy dupe in DIY. And now I'm going to take my stain that I created. I'm going to put that all over the roof. And here I'm showing you how I'm going to do the pieces that have to be cut separately on the side with the chimney. Like I said, not complicated, just have to cut down the little popsicle sticks to fit. And here I am snipping off the ends just to make sure that they're more even. And I'm going to sand off the edges and make sure I get everything stained. And then the one other thing that's different is that there is like a piece of metal across the very peak of the roof on both of them. So I'm going to take out my little tin baking pan from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut a couple pieces. I'm going to measure them against the roof line, and then I'm literally going to fold them in half and hot glue them right to the top. And then I'm going to take my steel Waverly chalk paint and I'm going to dab over that shiny metal because I don't want it to be super shiny. And literally that's it. This one will be done. Super easy and so cute. I love these little houses. They have so much more character now than they did before. You have to tell me what you think. And would you consider doing something like this if you had a little metal house like this at home? Just for fun. Let me know in the comments. Love this little book stack that says faith, hope, love. And you know, for $24, I could make this for almost nothing. I'm going to use my Kills White primer paint, and I'm going to use some nautical, actually I think it's just the bigger jute from Walmart. And then I've got 3 books that were already used, and so I'm just taking off the covers and the back covers and leaving the rest of the book. And then what I'm going to do is take the white primer paint and then very lightly paint over the tops of each of the books and the bottom of the bottom, the top of the top book, the bottom of the bottom one, and all the way around the sides of all of them. Because the book in the middle, you're only going to see the edges. You're not going to see the top and bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. Go ahead and cover those with the paint. But I want you to see the writing coming through just a little bit. So I'm not like doing a heavy coat at all, just a very light single coat. Then I'm going to use my premium decoupage, and I'm going to do all the spines, and then I'm going to do the top of the top book and the bottom of the bottom book, because just in case it were to get wet or something, you know, it's paper, so I want to make sure that it's protected. Next, I'm going to use a piece of tape to get a straight line, and with one of my markers, I'm going to write the words. And I'm going to make them look a little bit like newspaper type font. I was going to use stamps, but my stamps are too little and it's hardly noticeable. So I'm just going to go ahead and freehand it, and you know, I'm not a calligrapher, but I'll do the best I can. And then there's a little heart on the one that says love. Now in the original, they're not this dark, so I'm trying to dab at them a little bit. Then I'm going to take the rope and I'm going to wrap it around 3 times each direction and then hot glue it to the bottom. And then the last thing I'm going to do, just to make sure that the letters aren't too dark, is I'm going to get a little bit of the white paint on my fingers and I'm just going to kind of smudge it over the letters, you know, just a little bit, just to lighten it up and make it look a little bit older and kind of more used. That's it, you guys. This was super easy and I love it. This farmer's market wood platform set, there were two here for $148. I decided to make one and I made it square instead of rectangle. Now this, I'm just using paint sticks and some paint, so it's really not going to cost very much. The paint sticks are the ones I got from Amazon, and that's apple barrel burnt umber paint with some water mixed in to create a stain. And I'm going to stain every single piece of the wood, all sides, edges, top, bottom. Once that's done, I just looked at the picture and figured out how many I might need for the top. I think I did 12, and then I had for each of the 4 sides. And then I also decided that in order to do this, I was going to have to use some of my tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to use my square so I can get a good right angle, and I'm going to use a combination of hot glue and liquid adhesive from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to attach all my pieces. Now I'm going to use this only for lightweight things, so I wasn't too worried about the weight of it. If I needed this to hold something heavy, I would have absolutely used wood glue and probably E6000 together. And now I'm just assembling it, and I'm taking the cross slats over the top and I'm going to attach each one, and I'm going to complete that top. Then I'm going to assemble the sides and the legs, and the legs are what I'm going to use the tumbling tower blocks for. I'm going to stain those as well with the mix that I had made. And then I'm going to take 2 of the tumbling tower blocks and use a combination of the liquid adhesive and the hot glue together, and then I'm going to stack that 2 high. So it's going to be 4 tumbling tower blocks for each leg. And then I will attach the side slats that go down a little bit lower. So there's the ones that are up close to the top, and then the one I'm putting right now on the side. And of course there's 4 of those as well. Now this was pretty easy to assemble once I figured out kind of the pattern of it. I think it's really cute, but I did want it to be a little more stable. So I don't know if the other one had this, but I added pieces underneath like crossbars just to make sure that this could hold anything at all, even just little decor pieces. I decided to add 1 more coat of stain, and then I took it outside and did a clear coat over the entire thing. And I love it. What do you guys think? Really cool corner shelf on Crate & Barrel's website for $129. Let's do it for less. I'm going to be using my Kills White primer paint and this sign that I got from Dollar Tree. First thing I'm going to do is take off the tag, and then I'm going to turn the sign over, and I have this awesome tool from Amazon that makes it so easy to remove staples, and I'm going to go ahead and remove those and take the little hanger off because I don't need it. Then I'm going to take my square and another little ruler, and I'm going to figure out exactly how to cut the line diagonally across because I want the 2 pieces to be equal. I'm going to use a blade and just keep scoring over it until it's worn down enough for me to bend it in half, and then I can cut the rest of it all the way through. And the reason I'm doing this is that I need a triangle piece for this shelf, and this is going to be a perfect thickness by putting the 2 pieces together. I'm going to sand the edges. And of course that made a mess, so I'm going to use my little ladybug tool from Amazon and vacuum it up, which I love that thing. Then I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to put it on what used to be the front, I removed the paper, and then I'm going to put them together. So all that you see now are the back sides. Now I'm going to take that white primer and I'm going to use a foam brush and I'm just going to put it on all in one direction. So you see what it looks like, kind of grain. Use my heat tool to dry it. I'm going to do the same thing to both sides, and I'm also going to paint around the edges. And then I'm going to use a combination of warm buff and burnt umber. I'm going to mix them together, and then I'm going to add a little bit of pumpkin by Waverly, the chalk paint, and I'm trying to get this really kind of warm wood look like the picture had. So after mixing them together, I'm going to put this on again, all in the same direction to give it a wood grain kind of a look. I'm going to end up doing 2 coats to get it dark enough. And of course, I'm going to do this to the back and the sides as well. And then I'm going to take a kind of a stiff chippy brush and just go across it and try to make those grain lines look more real. Originally I was going to use these painter sticks, and I ended up switching to the very thick dowels that I have. And I honestly can't remember if I got those at Dollar Tree or Walmart. Either way, I'm using my miter shears from Amazon to go ahead and cut them to fit that length of the base of the triangle, or at least the bottom part you see there. And I'm going to end up doubling it up. I'm going to take all the skewers that I'm going to use and I'm going to put them in some foam and just paint them all with the ink chalk paint from Waverly. I'm going to take 2 of the skewers that I measured out already to fit that long side of the triangle. I'm going to use a combination of E6000 and hot glue to attach it. And like I said before, I am going to double up. I'm going to wipe away some of that excess so it doesn't get everywhere. And hopefully this will keep it in place. If I had really good power tools, I could have cut those thicker paint sticks, but I don't. So that's why I ended up using the dowels. And it's not my first choice, but it does end up looking nice. Now I'm just kind of trying to figure out how I'm going to end up positioning those side pieces. It's really tricky. I've got the one that is going to be supporting the very middle of the triangle. And like I said, I'm doubling all of them up just to give them a little more thickness like the picture had. This was the hardest part. I had to use jars of paint and different things to kind of position it, and you'll see me using my level a lot to keep this in place. It was very tricky because of how it rests right on the point of that triangle. I'm going to touch up where the hot glue might be with some of my black paint. And now back to positioning the shelf. Like I said, I'm using paint jars, my level, and I have to do this back and forth, back and forth. This was literally the trickiest part. And I'm going to do some hot glue, and I don't think you see me doing it, but I also added some E6000, whatever I could find to make this secure. And I just kept adding more, peeling off excess, using the level to check it. This was the most challenging part, no question about it. It's not like anything else was difficult. This was just challenging. So then I flipped it over, did the same thing. I decided that that very back piece needed to be thicker, so I'm going to take my tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to paint them all in the ink paint, and then I'm going to hot glue them to the lower and the upper portion of that skewer that's supporting the point of the triangle, and that really helps support the shelf, and it looks nicer too. So I'm glad that I came up with that idea, even though, like I said, if I'd only had power tools, I would have definitely done the wider paint sticks. Now I'm going to place all those blocks on there just to make sure I know how many I need, and paint the next set, and then I will go ahead and hot glue them all right to the skewers. And then I'm going to flip it over to the other side there and do the bottom or the top, whichever way you look at it, as well. I'm going to add a little bit more hot glue on both sides just to reinforce where the tumbling tower block meets the shelf itself. And of course, I'm constantly checking to see that it's level and just like I said, making sure that it is as secure as possible because it looks so precarious the way it's sitting there. Now I'm going to take those doubled up skewers that I cut and measured to go from one edge of the shelf to the top and one edge of the shelf to the bottom. Now I accidentally did it backwards from the picture, but it really doesn't matter, and I think it looks good either way. But I just hot glued those, and they really aren't holding any weight, so it's okay to just use hot glue on those. I really love how this turned out, and I have a perfect place to put it. And I'll tell you, I do like a good challenge, and literally this one only cost me $3 plus paint and glue. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Found this really cool birthday board on Pinterest. Now I've seen lots of these and I've been wanting to make one for a while because we have a pretty big family and it is hard to keep track of all those birthdays. So I'm going to take this one and use it for inspiration so it won't be an exact dupe. I found these really cool tags on Amazon and it'll be linked in my Amazon store. And then I've got this sign from the Dollar Tree, which is really 3 little squares kind of pieced together. I'm going to take those apart. And then I have some scrap wood, little shims, and then I'm going to use crystal and ballet slipper, celery and cashew, and plaster. And then I do use little antique wax and of course my Kilz all-purpose white primer. I'm going to go ahead and remove the tags. I'm going to use this really cool staple remover that I got on Amazon. I'll have that in my store as well. Just takes the staples out like it's nothing. And then I'm going to sand down the area where the staples were. Then I'm going to take my signs, I'm going to turn them over, and I'm going to use those shims or scrap pieces of wood to hot glue the pieces together for extra support. And now I just have one long board. I'm going to use my Kilz white primer and I'm going to paint the whole thing in that primer just to give it a nice base coat. I'll use my heat tool to dry it, also in my Amazon store, and then I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to draw faux shiplap lines, and I'm not going to make them all even. I really want this to look like a bunch of random pieces of wood put together. I'm going to get my finger wet and smear the pencil marking. Now if I was going to leave it like this would be fine. I probably didn't need to do this because I did decide later to accentuate them, but I'm also going to take a blade and I'm going to cut into them just to make them actually look like individual pieces of wood. Now I'm going to alternate the colors that I mentioned earlier. So right now I first did plaster on the 2 ends and 1 in the middle, and now I'm doing cashew. Then I'm going to do the crystal on the opposing sides. And then I'm going to move in with my celery. And then the last 2 planks are going to be in the ballet slipper. Now this kind of gives it a little bit of a look of like reclaimed wood. So you could almost say this is kind of a coastal vibe, but it's also farmhouse. So, you know, it will go either way. And I just like that about it. It's very, versatile. Now I'm taking the antique wax, and this is where I decided to accentuate the little planks. So I just put a drop on and then I'm like smearing it with my finger. Yeah, it gets a little messy, but you know what? It's just paint and it wipes right off. And now I'm going to go around and distress very lightly around the edges. And then I'm going to do a super light dry brushing over the top where you just put a little bit on your brush, wipe most of it off, and drag it across. Now I'm going to take my little sanding sponge from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to go ahead and sand over all of those lines just to blur them a little bit more. Now I'm going to take my Aleene's decoupage and I'm going to go over the top of the whole sign so it's nice and smooth. Now this is the most awesome tool. I got this on Amazon too, and it is a crocodile. Makes holes like it's nothing. These really cool cardboard letters that they're sticky on the back from Walmart, and I just decided to take my black marker and I went over the top of them because I wanted them to be black. I've done this before and it does work out really well, and I'm spelling out the word family. And then I found this liquid adhesive at the Dollar Tree. I've been using it for everything. I love it because it's got a real pointy top, and I'm just placing the words. I didn't center them 100%. Well, I'll be honest, I thought I was, but obviously I don't center very well, so it's off center, and now I'm going to go with that. So I'm putting on the word family individually, all the letters with my little adhesive. And I'm going to use my square to try to put them on straight. If I can't center it, at least hopefully I can put them on level. Then I'm going to use these decals from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to use the little like leaves, and I'm just going to put them right on because they're already sticky. I'm going to put some off to the right, and later I'm going to add some to the left. And I'm going to use my blade to cut them where the planks are because I want them to look like they're on separate planks. And now I'm going to use a pencil and I'm going to write in cursive, "Life's Greatest Blessing." And I'm just going to go over that with a black marker. And I'm going to use my heat tool to dry it so I don't accidentally smudge it. Now I'm just going to freehand the months of the year. Now I'm going to be honest, I probably should have used some letters for this or my Cricut or something because I don't think I wrote them very nicely. But at the same time, this is more of a functional piece, so it's cute. You know, maybe I didn't do the letters as nicely as I could have, but I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to use that Crop-A-Dile again, and I'm going to punch a hole for each of the months. And literally, this thing goes through everything like butter: wood, metal, cardboard, you name it, plastic. There's no effort. If you have arthritis, this is a tool you should really get. It will help you so much. I'm going to put some of my Aleene's decoupage right over those decals to make sure they stay in place. And then I'm going to get my craft paper and hot glue it to the back. And then I'll take a blade and some scissors and I will just go ahead and trim that off and make sure that you can't see it from the front. Do you love mega videos? Check out the link in my description box for a playlist of just that. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my decoupage solution over the top of all of my months and then Life's Greatest Blessing because I want to make sure that stays in place and it doesn't get smudged or anything, you know, with liquid. And I'm going to poke back through the holes. Since I put the craft paper on, you can't see them. I'm going to use a pointy pencil and just point through each of the holes for the months and the top two that I'm going to hang it from. And then I'm going to take some jute twine from the Dollar Tree and I'm just going to tie a knot and wrap it around the holes at the top for each of the hangers. Now I filled out all the little tags off camera and attached them to the sign. And so I'm going to show you a picture of what that looks like. It would just have taken so long on the video. So there are all the birthdays. It's not even everybody. It's just the close family members. And here it is, you guys. I absolutely love this. It's so practical. It's going to hang in my husband's office area. Now we have a way to see them and I'm so excited about it. I found this gorgeous picture. It's almost like a framed wreath and it was sold through Pinterest by Gifts and Wreaths Boutique and it was $69 and I thought I could do this. So I have this frame that was gifted to me and then I found this Hello Fall sign at Hobby Lobby and then I'm going to use different chalk paint colors, which I will show you again. And right now I'm just going to take everything out of the frame and remove the little metal pieces that hold things in. I'm going to use the agave color as my base coat and I'm going to put a coat on the back, and then once that dries I'm going to turn the frame over and I'm going to do the same thing on the front. And the front is gorgeous. It has such beautiful detail and I'm going to accentuate that. And what I'm going to do is after I paint this with the agave, I'm going to go in with some of the Waverly White wax and I'm going to paint it on and then take a paper towel and wipe it off. And I just love that effect because you still see the agave, but then you get all that detail. Now, once I finished this, I decided it needed something else. So I'm going to add some antique wax. And then I'm going to do the same thing, put that on and rub it off. And then just to make sure I didn't lose too much of the agave, I do go back in and touch up a little bit by dry brushing on some more agave and bringing back some of that beautiful color. I just love that agave color. And so that is how I'm going to get this to look close to the color in the inspiration piece. Now that Hello Fall sign that I got at Hobby Lobby is so cute. I love these wooden signs. Now this was $5.99 and I got it for 40% off, so it was a very good deal. I'm going to take the plaster color chalk paint and I'm going to paint the front, the back, and inside between all of the little letters in the sides because I want the whole thing to be in that plaster color. The next thing I'm going to do is take a bunch of different floral picks, and they're all fall for the most part, and I got most of them at Dollar Tree and some at Hobby Lobby on clearance. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through with my little snips, and I'm going to just cut off the things that look like the ones in the picture. Now I ordered a bow maker because you know I'm bow challenged. Anyway, I am taking my buffalo check ribbon. Now in the inspiration piece, it was kind of like a blue and white buffalo check, but I didn't have that, so I'm using my black and white, but I think it looks great. And I'm just making my bow using the bow maker, and gotta tell you guys, this is a game changer. And I'm going to tie some twine around the middle. And then I'm going to take another little piece of that buffalo check ribbon and I'm going to wrap it around the center just to make it look pretty and hot glue that down. Then I'm going to fluff my bow quite a bit and I dovetail the ends. And as soon as I finish this, we're going to go back to arranging those florals because the bow is going to go on top. So I need to get those florals down first. So I'm going to take a little piece of that buffalo check ribbon and I'm going to wrap it around this one little side of the frame. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I will hot glue all the florals to it instead of the frame in case I ever want to change this out. So now I'm just going to start creating like a swag. So pretty much everything I put up, I'm going to put down, and I'm going to put some sideways. You'll see I'm just looking at the picture, the inspiration piece, and I'm just trying to make it look as much like that as possible with the pieces that I have. And it's just so easy to do this. I mean, you just hot glue it, let it dry, and it just comes out so pretty. I really love this look. And doing this on a picture frame, I've never done this before and I absolutely love it. You could hang this on your front door. You could put this inside your home, whatever you want. It's just so cool. I love all the different kinds of florals and greenery and fall florals that they have. It's just so cool. And this is just a perfect fall combination. Now, once I get everything glued down and set exactly the way I want it, I'm going to take my bow and I'm just going to put hot glue right there in the center of all that, and I'm going to hot glue my bow right down to this. And then I'm just going to tack down a couple of the little loops so that it looks the way I want it to. I absolutely love the way this is turning out. Then I've got this cute little knob from Hobby Lobby. It's 99 cents, but I literally got it for 70% off. So, I mean, that's almost free. And what I'm doing is a combination of E6000 and hot glue to attach it. The frame isn't thick enough to screw right into it. And then I'm going to put some twine inside the little holes on the Hello Fall sign. I'm going to hang it on the knob, and then I'm just going to tack down a couple edges of the Hello Fall sign so it stays in place. You guys, I love this one. Please let me know if you love it too. I've been saving corks for a long time. It takes a long time to get this many in my house. And I'm going to make something out of them. I'm going to use two of the Waverly chalk paint colors, Pumpkin and Truffle. My inspiration for this piece came from Pinterest, and this is being sold by True Vine Gifts for a set of 3 for $52. Now I'm only going to make one set, but divide 52 by 3, and I'm still saving a ton of money because I'm able to make this with stuff I had at home for free. So I put a portion of the corks into, and you decide how many you want to do each color, and I put them in this little jar, and then I sprayed water in it and I mixed in with some of the pumpkin paint, and then I did some more corks with the truffle color, and that way I get kind of a blotchy covering. It's almost like distressing them a little bit, and then I dry them with my heat tool, which you can find in my Amazon store. All my tools should be there. And now I'm going to hot glue the pieces together, and I used the picture to count how many were in each row, and then I just kind of mixed up the colors the way that I wanted them to look. And then I start gluing them on top of each other, like stacking, and they fit right in nicely. Let's say the bottom row, the next row, they fit right in between them, so it fits really nice and it's easy to glue them right in. And I do reinforce some of the areas where they touch just to make sure. Now this piece is very solid. I've put so much hot glue. I don't think you need to use more than hot glue, but you certainly can. And it just coming out so cute, you guys. So the assembly goes really fast. There are 5 rows, and the bottom row has 5, then the next one has 6, the middle row has 7, and then it goes back down to 6 and then 5. And then you use 1 cork at the end for the stem. And honestly, it's just really coming together so easily, and I absolutely love the way it's looking. I'm going to use one of the unpainted corks for the stem, and I'm going to cut it at an angle because I want it to sit on top slightly at an angle, and that way I can hot glue it right to the top. I'm going to grab some really pretty fall leaves from the Dollar Tree and also a pick from the Dollar Tree that has little berries on it, and I'm just going to hot glue those right around the stem, and that's just going to add a nice little touch, and it's going to make it look similar to the one in the picture. And I kind of tack the leaves down a little bit too so that they're laying exactly the way that I want them. This was a super easy project, and I absolutely love the way it turned out. Please let me know what you think, and would you consider making something like this? I have this cute little tag that I got at Dollar General, and I was inspired by this piece I found on Pinterest, and each piece was for sale on that little tiered tray for $15 each, and I'm thinking I can make this for way less. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand off what's on there already, the design that's there, so I can paint over it with that cottage white paint by Folk Art. And I'm going to have to give it several coats to cover, but it looks really nice when it's finally done. And I'm going to do the edges and the back side because I do like to finish my projects. I'm going to dry it real quick with my heat tool, which is in my Amazon store, along with my other tools that you can get on Amazon. I'm going to use this piece of cardboard to cut a circle because on the inspiration piece there was a little round tag right at the top where the hole is on the tag itself. I'm going to paint that with the pumpkin colored chalk paint by Waverly, and then I'm going to use my liquid adhesive that I got at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to glue that right on top. And so don't worry about the holes that are already in it because I'm going to have to make a new one anyway just to get it right in the center. Now the back had the hole, so I put a little hot glue in there and then I just painted it white. And now I'm going to use my Crop-A-Dial, which is one of my favorite tools that's in my Amazon store. And I just punched a hole right through that and then I touched it up a little. Now I'm going to take some painter's tape, and there's a stripe at the top and a stripe towards the bottom, and I'm just going to place my tape so that I can treat it like a stencil. And I'm going to use my brush as if it were a dabber, and I'm going to take the truffle colored Waverly chalk paint, which is a brown, and I'm just going to lightly dab over that, and then I will remove the tape and I'll have two nice lines there, just the way I wanted. It looks like the inspiration piece. Then I used some stencil vinyl that I ordered on Amazon, which you can also find in my store, much cheaper than other places. And I reverse weeded it by taking out the letters, and then I put it down, and then I dabbed on it with that paint again. And now I'm just taking off the excess vinyl that's left. And now for the pumpkin spice. You can use stickers. If you know how to do hand lettering, you can do that too. And I sanded over the top lightly, and then I covered this with some Mod Podge just to kind of seal in the paint. Then I took a little piece of jute twine and tied a little knot, and there you go. With all the supplies, this probably cost me $3 to make. This was so easy, you guys. Tell me what you think in the comments. I found this super cute little sign on Pinterest sold by Six Little Ducks for $24, and I just felt like I could make this. So I have this cute little wooden piece from the Dollar Tree, and I just sanded it down, and now I'm adding pumpkin color chalk paint by Waverly all over the whole front and sides. I'm going to mist the top while it's still wet with my sprayer, and then I'm going to use antique wax, and I'm going to keep layering it till I get that look of the color that the inspiration piece has. So it's taken me several times going back and forth, but I think I finally have it. And I'm going to remove the tag from the back, and then I'm going to take the wax and I'm just going to put it on the back and wipe off the excess and just stain it just to give it a finished look. And then I'm going to turn it back over, sand the top and wipe that off, and then I'm going to sand around the edges to get that pumpkin color to start peeking through again, and I just love that look. And the inspiration piece also had the distressed edges. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little jute twine hanger on the back with some hot glue and some masking tape. And then I'm going to take premium decoupage and I'm going to go over the top because I am going to use my Cricut for this one to create the words. I'm going to try to replicate the fonts as best as I can. And of course you can always do stickers, stencils, handwriting, or tracing. And it's just going to say my favorite color is October, and it is so cute, and this was super easy. This adorable Let's Get Cozy sign over online at Antique Farmhouse for $26, and I think I can make this for less. I found this little framed metal art at Hobby Lobby on 70% clearance. It was like $3.74, so 70% off that, very cheap. Now there's a lot of stuff to remove here that I have to use my heat gun for, so I am just going to work away in fast motion and get all of that stuff off. Took a little heat and a little muscle, but I did get them all off, and now we are ready to go ahead and start making that adorable little sign. Now the wood that they used for their sign was a lighter wood. This is stained much darker, so I'm going to sand some of it off. I'm also going to need some beads and some twine to create the little hanging thing that drapes across the sign. Now where that metal thing was, I had to fill it in with a little bit of wood filler and sand that down because I needed a smooth surface. I'm going to use the plaster colored paint by Waverly. Now, okay, I should have taken the base picture out of the frame. I didn't think of it till I got a little further along, so if you're thinking it now, yeah, I know, I should have done it. Anyway, I didn't at this point, so I was trying to be so careful not to get the paint on the frame. I did have to wipe some of it off, but that's okay because you know what? Things happen. So now I'm just adding a little bit of the plaster and then wiping off some of it from the frame so that I can lighten it even a little more. I'll never get it to their color of wood because it was already stained. I would have had to sand that thing way down. I'm going to use some painter's tape to create the little stripes that were on there, and I'm going to use ink color chalk paint by Waverly. I'm going to water it down. I have a little spray bottle there, and literally I'm just going to put a whole bunch on and then kind of dab it off, and then you'll see when I remove the tape there's just a nice little line, but it's not like super dark and solid. So I'm going to follow the pattern on the original one and do it exactly like they did. There's some darker, thicker stripes and some very faint, narrow stripes, and that's what I'm doing right now with the tape. I just use the same pieces of tape over and over because they're always dry by the time I get them back on there. And I'm basically treating this like a stencil, so I'm not painting it on, I'm dabbing it on. Just wanted to mention that. I probably should have used a little dabber, but I just took a regular paintbrush and kind of tapped it on there. That way it wouldn't be that super solid line. In order to do the letters, I have tons of Dollar Tree alphabet stickers, and I decided to use those for 2 of the words, and then I'm going to handwrite the other one. And I could have used my Cricut, but I just had these handy and I decided to go ahead and use them. So the font for the word cozy is different than the one in the picture, but I like it. It's kind of more cutesy and it fits the word. And then the font for get, that's fine. It looks great. And then the word let's, they had it in like a cursive, so I decided to hand draw it with a pencil while looking at theirs, and then I go in with some paint and then eventually with a marker to darken that and make it look better. I'm not great at the lettering, I'm learning, but you know what? I do think it turned out cute, so I was very happy with how that part turned out. Next, I'm going to take the twine and the beads, and you don't paint the beads in this one, they just stay natural. So there's like a pattern. It's 2 beads and then a tassel, 2 beads and then a tassel, and then 2 beads. Now I'm going very fast here, so what I'm going to do is in my description box I will have a link for a very good tassel tutorial that I made months ago. I'm just going to do it quickly here and get this thing assembled. Once I have everything strung on the twine, I'm going to attach part of it to the back because it drapes over from the right side to the left side. And I'm just going to hot glue it down and make sure I don't cover up any of the words. And I even trim my tassels a bit just to make sure that I don't cover the words. And then I kind of tack everything down a little bit with a drop of hot glue to make sure it's laying exactly where I want it to. Sometimes I get excited when I'm making things and then I forget a step, which is putting Mod Podge over the whole top of the sign. So I had to move the tassels around a little bit, but I got it covered. And now I'm going to hot glue the sign piece back into the frame, which fits perfectly because I had just pried it out carefully. And this sign has turned out so cute, and I literally made it for less than $4. The original was $26. Let me know what you think. This gorgeous pumpkin wreath from Kirkland's was $44.99, and I found a wreath form like this at Hobby Lobby on sale, 40% off of $12.99, and I had tons of fall florals that matched it from the Dollar Tree, and then also some buffalo check ribbon from Hobby Lobby on sale, 40% off. So now I'm just going to kind of place the pieces where they were in the picture and just kind of see how it's going to look and which ones I'm going to use. I'm not gluing anything down until afterwards. I'm going to take my buffalo check ribbon and I'm just going to make a very simple bow because that's what they had in the picture. And I'm going to actually use a little bit of hot glue just to secure the pieces, and then I'm going to take another smaller piece of the ribbon and wrap it around the center, and I will dovetail the ends. And literally that's all for this bow. Super simple, which is a good thing because I'm a simple bow maker. I'm working on it. Trust me, I am trying. Now I'm going to go ahead and place those pieces in with some hot glue and secure them. I'm only putting the glue right where it touches the wreath form, and that way if I ever want to take this apart and redo it, I will be able to do that pretty easily without messing up the gorgeous grapevine wreath. And I love this pumpkin shape. It's so cute. It's got so much texture and interest, and I just think this is coming out really nice. This is honestly a very easy one. Now I know some people get intimidated by wreaths, but this was just incredibly easy. Just look at the picture and place the different florals wherever I think they needed to go, and that was it. The last step is to hot glue the bow right in the center below the stem. This cost me less than $13 to make with all the supplies. And what do you guys think? I found these adorable little book stacks for the fall, and you could make any one you want or any combination, and that's kind of what I did. So I've got a little crate from the Dollar Tree that has those 3 planks, so it looks like there could be 3 books, and I'm using cashew, agave, and pumpkin colored Waverly chalk paint. And then I've got this gorgeous little burlap lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and then from burlapfabric.com they sent me that cute little ticking ribbon. I'll link that in the description box, and I have a discount code if you're interested in that. So I'm going to sand the whole little box down, make sure there's no little rough edges, and I'm going to use painter's tape to paint off the different colors and create the look of books. It's such an inexpensive way to do this without, having to go get 3 books, which you can at the Dollar Tree for $1 each, by the way. So I'm just going to paint each one of those sections a different color, and I love that combination of the pumpkin and the agave for the fall. That's kind of my accent colors, and then neutrals in between. I'm really loving that. Oh, and I also like the traditional colors from fall as well. So again, just taping off each section and painting so that way I have a definite distinction of the colors. I want them to look a little worn, so I'm going to go ahead and sand each of the stripes of the colors and then all around the edges and between the planks, because I want this to, like I said, look like it's been sitting around for quite a while and a little bit worn. I'm going to take the color Fawn by Waverly, and I'm just going to take a super small brush and get in between each of the colors all the way around and then wipe off the excess so it looks like they're actually books and that shadow creates depth, like it goes deeper than just the surface. So that's what I'm trying to do. To write the words on the side, I guess I could have used my Cricut or some stickers, but I decided to write them. They kind of look like they were in that skinny font, that Rae Dunn look. I'm using a white Arteza paint marker to write the word cozy, and then I'll do the same for the word weather, and I'm using a brown Arteza paint marker to write the word sweater. Now, I am not a calligrapher, so I'm just doing my best looking at what they should look like, and I actually think they did turn out really cute, so I'm happy with it, and I wanted to have that kind of fun, that cozy feel. That's what I was going for. I'm going to figure out how much ribbon I need to wrap it around the long way and make a bow, and then I'm going to cut that piece off, and then I'm going to cut an exact same length piece of the Dollar Tree ribbon, and I'm going to hot glue it to the top of the farmhouse ticking ribbon. That way I create a really interesting, cool looking ribbon, and then I'm going to tie that all the way around and make a bow, just a very simple bow, and I'm going to hot glue certain places down so it doesn't move around and it doesn't cover the words. And literally, that's it. That's how easy this one was. This was $13 and I did it for under $3. I hope you guys like this one as much as I do. Love seasonal garland, but $24 seems like a lot. I know I can make this one for way less. I've got this fabric from Walmart. It's Waverly and it's a buffalo check plaid. And then I'm using a piece of cardboard to create a template, and I'm going to make my little triangle, and I'm making it 3 inches on each side. I'm going to cut that out, and then I'm going to get some even more heavy duty cardboard that I have, and I'm going to cut out 10 of them. Then I'm going to cut a strip of the fabric that's twice as long as what I need, and I'm going to hot glue each of the little triangles down. And once I get them all hot glued, I'm going to roll the top of that fabric over it like I'm doing right now and just hot glue the rest of it together. So that way both sides are attached with glue and both sides will have the fabric on it. After I get them all attached, I'm just literally going to cut out the triangles, and off camera I trim them really well. And then after I get them all trimmed, I'm going to take this amazing tool called the Crop-A-Dial. It's in my Amazon store if you're interested. And I'm literally going to make a hole on each end of one of the sides of the triangle. That way I'll be able to string them up. And there it is. It's such a cool tool, you guys. I use it all the time. It'll cut through metal, wood, you name it. Like, it's nothing, no effort at all. So once I have all the holes, then I'm going to take a little makeup sponge and my ink paint by Waverly. And because of the cardboard showing a little bit on the edges, I'm just going to go ahead and rub the paint all around the edges, and that kind of just seals everything in and it gives it a really nice look and maybe a little distressed. And then I have this cute gold and white twine that I got at Target, and I'm literally going to string them using that twine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue each little piece of the twine to the triangle so that they don't move around. And I'm going to use my template to space them so that way each one will be 3 inches apart and it'll just look really nice. You can make your triangles as big or as small as you want, and you can space them any way you want. So this was $24 and I made it for under $4. I'm really happy with how it turned out. This DIY is this whitewash beaded wooded lantern for $40. I know I can do this for less. I'm going to use some large paint sticks that I got, I think, at Lowe's. I have some wood planks from the Dollar Tree, a sign that I had done a different DIY, and a scrap piece of wood, a beaded necklace from Dollar Tree, an old toothbrush holder that I had I was going to donate to the Goodwill, and then I'm using some Kills white primer paint that I love to use. I'm sanding the little scrap piece of wood that I'm using and then using my Ladybug vacuum to clean it up. I will have that link in my description box. I'm painting all of the wood with that white paint, and I'm just going to cover every side pretty much of everything. I'm going to take the paint sticks and I'm going to cut off that little top part where it has an indentation. I'm going to use my miter shears for that. I got those on Amazon and I love them. They make cutting so easy without using major tools. So I'll also leave you guys that link in case you're interested. And I'm going to paint those also. I didn't need the part with the holes on top of the toothbrush holder, and it was really easy. I just bend it and it came right off. So that's great. And then I tried to sand the little ceramic piece so the paint would stick better. I don't know if that helped, but I'm using my ink colored chalk paint to paint this part all black, including the little handle that I'm holding. I'm going to paint all of that black because in the Kirkland's inspired piece, the part that held the candle was all black. In order to get the color that was on the original piece, I used a combination of the fawn colored chalk paint and the white wax from Waverly. So what I'm doing is I'm heavily dry brushing the fawn onto all of the white pieces that I painted. And after that's done, I'm going to go over it with the white Waverly wax, and it's going to give me the exact color that I'm looking for. And I was just really lucky that I guessed right because I wasn't sure how this was going to work. So this works out as a really nice technique. It almost creates like a blonde kind of a wood stain. I need to paint that little scrap piece of wood with the black ink colored paint because that piece in the original is black, and it had a kind of a scalloped edge for the legs, which I don't have. So I'm using these little blocks from Dollar Tree and I'm doing the same paint technique to them that I did with the rest of the wood, and I'm hot gluing them to the very bottom of the base of this lantern. Now I'm going to hot glue the little black square onto the middle of the top of the base in order to attach the piece that's going to hold my candle, which is that old toothbrush holder. I need to drill a hole. So I'm trying to find the center of that little black square. So I'm drawing diagonal lines across, and the center obviously is where I'm going to drill. I'm going to put a little piece of tape there so that I don't splinter the wood. At least that's what I've heard you should do, so I'm going to try it. This is my first time, I think, or second time using my drill in my DIYs. I'm excited. So I'm a little gun shy, so it takes me a little bit to push through, and then I realize I can just push through and it's going to work. Now I'm erasing my lines that I drew in pencil, and I've got my hole. Now I do have to make it a little wider at some point, but I'm able to push my little holder right through, and I'm going to hot glue on the bottom and along the top. And then I'm going to touch up the black paint where I put the hot glue so that it's not so noticeable. Next, I'm going to take those silver beads and I'm going to measure the length of my paint sticks. I need one for each of the paint sticks, so there are 4 of them. So I'm going to cut the right length for 4 of them. Then I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to hot glue it to the edge of the paint stick on all 4 of them. Once all the beads are attached to one side of the paint sticks, I'm going to use my white paint. I'm going to paint the beads on all sides and in between all the little spaces. Then I'm going to use a combination of E6000 and hot glue to attach each of the stir sticks to the sides of the lantern. Actually, they're kind of like diagonal in from the corners, and I'm going to hold them until the hot glue dries. And then I will go around and I'm going to reinforce every seam where the paint stick hits the base with hot glue because I really want to make sure that these stay put. I'm going to take that top square, the little plank that I already painted, and I'm going to hot glue that directly to the top. So putting a little bit of hot glue on each of those stir sticks. Now, turns out I did not do this super evenly, and it was sticking so well I didn't want to break it off and deal with that, so it's a teeny bit crooked. Probably nobody will notice but me, you know. Now I'm going to take my drill and I'm going to drill into the cap piece. I'm going to drill a hole on each side in the middle because we're going to have a little rope handle. I'm going to take some nautical rope, stick it through the hole, tie the knot on the underside, and then hot glue it so it sticks to the piece of wood. And then I'll cut off the nautical rope and then tie the next one in through the outside to the inside, tie another knot and hot glue it, and that will become my little handle for this. And it's just so cute. I kept looking at the picture. I kept thinking it would have a little pull handle, but it just has a little rope and it's adorable. The last step is to hot glue this little cap piece right onto the top, and that actually completes the DIY. And I think it does look a lot like the original one, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. You'll have to let me know what you guys think. Kirkland's dupe. I'm doing a lavender arrangement in a rustic watering can. Now they're asking $45. I know I can make this for less. Now mine's not a watering can. It's more like a container you'd see in a restaurant, like that holds syrup, but it was missing the lid. I found that at a thrift shop, picked it up for I think $1.99. Great deal. Then I'm going to do the faux galvanized metal technique. Take some black paint, I'm using the ink color by Waverly, and just dab it on. I'm using a little makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of the metallic silver paint from Folklore, and again, just dabbing that on just to, kind of lighten up the black a teeny bit. And then I'm going to use a little bit of white and do the same thing, just dabbing it all over. I'm not rubbing it in, I'm not spreading it, just making little dabbing marks. And then after that, the next color I'm going to use is a gray. It's going to be Steel from the Waverly chalk paint line. And I'm going to be putting that all over it, including the inner rim, because that might be seen. So I'm trying to do everything that's going to be seen. Now, I learned this technique from a channel called Chalk It Up Fancy. It's a mother-daughter team, and they do a lot of amazing tutorials. And I've learned so much of my special techniques from them. And I'll put their channel link down in my description as well. The last thing I'm going to do is use some burnt umber from Apple Barrel paints. You can get those at Walmart. And I literally just dab around all the edges and seams and places where you might find some rust or serious wear and tear. And it's amazing how it gives that look. It's so good at that. And I know people use all different colors for this, but I will say burnt umber is my favorite for this technique. Does anyone else think it's funny that we clean off these items with alcohol and then turn around and do a painting technique to make them look dirty and rusty? I just think that's kind of funny how we do that. Oh well, at least I know it's clean, right? I got this little roll of burlap from Walmart, and I'm going to cut a strip. I don't want those seamed edges involved in this. I want everything to look very, very, rustic like the picture from Kirkland. So I'm going to cut off both of the edges, and then I'm going to pull some of the thread of the burlap on either side to create a little bit of a frayed edge. And I do that after it's attached because that's when I thought of it. So now I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue, and at first it didn't want to stick because I think I missed the mark on where the burlap was. So I go back in, and I've got it now, and I'm going to use my little applicator for makeup that I got, I think on Amazon. I can link that down below too. That way I don't burn my fingers. I used to burn myself all the time, you guys. Oh my gosh, so now I'm fraying it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the rope that I have and tie around and make a very simple bow, just like the picture. I'm also going to put a couple of dabs of hot glue to keep the bow in place because I want it to lay, a certain way so it looks just like the piece that I'm trying to replicate. I have several picks of lavender that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to arrange them inside which is now a vase, I guess. And I'm going to cut off the ends so that it's just the right height to fit in there and look as similar to the picture as possible. And I do actually end up adding another one when you see the final reveal, because I thought it just needed to be a little bit fuller. I really love how this piece turned out. It's funny, I don't decorate my house with super rustic things, but I love making them. Go figure. My husband loves this one too. I think he wants it now in his office. Pretty soon all my crafts are going to end up in his office. I think it's hilarious. Anyway, I hope you guys like it. I think it looks a lot like the original one, other than having a pouring spout. Other than that, I think it came out great. So let me know what you think. This Kirkland's item is $50 and it's so cute. It's a nice serving tray that, says something about blessing the food and the family and the love between us, and I really like it. And I thought, I bet I can make this for less. So here we go. I found this already galvanized type of a tray at the Goodwill for $4, which, gosh, with that corrugated edge was a really good deal. I'm going to use my White Kills paint, and I'm going to do probably, I think I did 3 coats to get this thing covered. And, also I started off with a brush that had bristles and realized I should probably use a foam brush, and that's what I switched to, and that made it much smoother. The look I'm going for is going to be that white enamel that when it gets worn away, you see some black around the edges and in different spots. So that's what I'm trying to do here with this one. And I'm going to go ahead and paint the back. I'm not necessarily going to paint those little pads that are on there, but I do get a little paint on there. I'm not worried about it. We'll never see that. I continue until I get this whole thing covered, till I think it looks like the enamel. Those little corrugated edges were tricky. I had to get in there and really kind of pounce on that to get in the little cracks. To give it that worn look, I'm going to take a makeup sponge and use my ink colored chalk paint. It's a black, so I just kind of first go around the edges and then I come back in and I spread some little blotches around. Kept most of my blotchiness to those edges, and I actually think that's where most of the wear would happen anyway. Now I didn't want to pull up the paint with the transfer paper. I'm going to use my Cricut for this, so I put Mod Podge down first. I went ahead and I tried to recreate their fonts as best I could. I just had to keep playing with it till it looked like it. And I will have to embellish it a little bit with black marker, you'll see. And right now I am just removing the letter from the Cricut paper, and I'm going to add, well, actually it's on some masking tape that I'm using as transfer tape. And then I'm going to lay it down, try to center it, and go ahead and rub that on with my little scraper, and ultimately pull up the masking tape to reveal the vinyl. And wherever it didn't come out the way I wanted, I just take a little black marker and I fill it in and fix it. You're going to see that here in just a second. Now I'm going to take the F in the word family. I'm going to create a tail on the end and also on the L in the word love, because that was in the original font. I also lost the dot on the I somehow in the process. And I'm using this premium decoupage by Aleene's that I got, I think, at Michael's. It was a better value than regular Mod Podge, and it worked great. I would definitely buy this again. You guys, I love this one so much. It came out great, and you have to let me know what you think. I hope that you like it too. I saw this super cute little box that says Got Mail on Pinterest for $22.71, and I thought, I bet I could make that. So I found these 2 little crates from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove the tags, and then I'm going to get my utility knife out, and I'm going to cut off one of the short ends. on each one, because what I want to do is attach them together to make a wider box. I am definitely fast forwarding through this part because it took some serious muscle. I mean, either that or I'm just super weak, and that actually could be it. So maybe it would be easy for anyone else. I have a problem on my kitchen counter with where we need to put our mail, and so this is going to solve that, and I'm really excited about that. Now that I've separated those pieces, I've sanded them, and of course using the Ladybug vacuum to clean it up, and I will link that in the description box. Now I'm going to use my Kiehl's All-Purpose Primer paint. I use this a lot. It goes on almost like a white chalk paint. It's perfect. And I did literally paint everything, bottom, top, sides, everything. I have this Buffalo Check tissue paper, and I honestly can't remember if I got it at Dollar Tree or Walmart or Hobby Lobby. I'm not sure, guys. Sorry. Now I'm just cutting out the pieces that would be the right sizes approximately for the inside of the box. So basically 2 of every piece I cut, and I'm going to trim them and try to size them in there, and I'm going to Mod Podge it just like I've done in the past when you've seen me Mod Podge. Super easy. Try to get as close to the right size as you can. Lay down the Mod Podge, put it in the tissue paper, then lay down some more Mod Podge, and then when all of the pieces are in there, I'm going to, once it's dry, you don't want to do anything until the tissue paper is dry, and then I'm going to rip off the edges and sand the remainder so that it looks nice and clean, and you can just watch me do that right now. On the short side of the boxes, there's a little hole that looks like it would have been like a handle. So I'm using my X-Acto knife. I'm just going in there and I'm cutting around that hole and removing the tissue paper from that spot on both sides. Now I'm going to use a combination of E6000 and hot glue to secure the 2 pieces together. Now I've been told that you don't overlap the 2, that it doesn't work as well. So if you notice, I'm just putting E6000 on each side and a little bit in the middle of the long side, and then the hot glue around that, and then I am putting it together. I'm going to wipe off the sides real quick because sometimes that E6000 oozes out, and same with the hot glue. And then I'm going to clamp them and hopefully they will stay together. I'm going to come in with some more hot glue down that center seam just for a little extra security. And now I've got some sticker letters from the Dollar Tree. And yes, I have a Cricut, but I don't always use it because sometimes I like the stickers that they have and it's cheaper than buying vinyl. So I am spelling out Got Mail and I'm Mod Podging them. Even though they're sticky, I really want to make sure they stay. And I couldn't find a good question mark, so I just used a black marker and I drew it myself. Now I'm going to go in with some ink chalk paint and I'm going to distress it. Now this is my first time doing that with ink color. I usually do the antique wax or truffle or something else. I gotta be honest with you, I don't like it. So I end up going over it with some white, and I'm using a little makeup sponge, and I must have got it too wet because I feel like I overdid it big time. So I'll just go in and then I'm gonna use a little bit of silver, or actually it's called steel, and I'm gonna fix that up. Now I'm using a little buffalo check ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap it around the very top and hot glue that in place. The original one didn't have this, but this was just an inspired piece, so I decided to give it my own spin, and I like doing that. I'm not going for an exact dupe here. In keeping with the farmhouse look that I've got going here, I'm going to take some twine and wrap it around the bottom several times. No particular pattern or rhyme or reason, and I'm going to hot glue it. And I'm going to take these little lavender pieces from the Dollar Tree with a little piece of greenery behind it. I'm going to hot glue that off to the left side of this box. I just think that makes it super cute and, again, real farmhouse feel. Now I'm going to make a little bow. I'm just going to wrap it around my fingers, tie it in the center, and then clip the 2 loops on the end and just hot glue that right over the little end of the stem of the lavender just to finish it off. I forgot to film myself doing the next part, but I found a little chalkboard with a clothespin on it from Dollar Tree, and then I put a little rub-on transfer of a little letter from Dollar Tree, and I added that to the right side. I really love how this turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Gorgeous vase is another thing that I found on Pinterest, but it was pretty expensive at somewhere between $24 and $34, and I thought, I'm gonna make it. So again, I'm using one of my creamer containers that I have saved, and I'm using a blade to cut off the top, and then I'm going to trim it even shorter than that after I remove the wrapper. I'm going to cut in one of the grooves because I think I can get a straighter line if I do it that way. Otherwise, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm going to take my little sanding sponge from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to sand around the whole outside of this container because I want the paint to stick and it's a little bit smooth. And then I'm also going to run it over the bottom and the top just to make sure that everything is kind of roughed up. Now I'm using that Kills Primer white paint that I like to use, and I'm going to give it a good solid coat, and it really doesn't take much to cover since it was already white. I have this greenery pick that I got at the Target Dollar Spot, and it's got these little pieces that when you cut them off, they can lay flat. So I've hot glued them to the side all the way around, and then a couple up a little higher. And I'm just going to make sure all the little edges are secure, and then I'm going to give it a coat of the white paint right over the top. Next, I'm going to use the color Truffle from the Waverly Chalk Paint, and I'm going to distress over the top. Now, I'm not going super heavy, but I'm also not going too light. I can go back and forth with the lighter color if I need to get just what I'm looking for, and I actually do that several times. Here I'm hitting it again with the white because I thought it was a little bit too dark. Now in the inspiration piece, it had a little touch of blue in it. So I'm going to use one of my Arteza markers. You're going to see how I'm going to, there it is. I'm just going to put it around the edge of the top and just over a little bit of the little, they're supposed to look like pine trees. And then I'm using this hard kind of plastic bristle brush and I'm writing on it with the marker. And then I'm very lightly putting that on the sides, and it gives me just the right effect, just the right amount of blue. Now I am going to go back over the trees a little bit because the blue looked like I was just putting little lines on it. So I'm going to use the Truffle and kind of cover some of the blue, and then I'm going to go back over it again with the white. It's a back and forth process till you get what you want. And eventually I do, and then I distress the rest of it a little bit, and I'm just really happy with how it turned out. I'm going to go ahead and put some more greenery on the inside. I'm just going to trim some pieces. I'm going to use some of the Spanish moss to fill in, and I'm going to hot glue that kind of around the sides so I don't have to fill up the entire thing. And I'm just thrilled with how it turned out. It's pretty close to the original, just a little bit of a different shape, but I really like it. I hope you guys like it. The inspiration piece didn't have these white flowers, but I really liked them, so I added them, and I'm glad I did. I think it was just the right touch. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This inspiration piece, I wasn't going for the exact thing, just the expression, let go and let God. So I took this little sign from the fall. I don't know if those are signs or what they are exactly. I'm using my Kills white paint again. And then I'm going to use a decal from Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint the whole thing on the outside and the sides white. It takes about 3 coats to cover, but that's okay. It's totally worth it. And I never show it, but I just use my blow dryer to dry everything. I don't have a heat gun right now. I'm waiting for my blow dryer to die. It's my old blow dryer. When it does die, I will buy a heat gun. But until then, I'm going to keep using that blow dryer. And you can see it takes several coats here. It really does, but no big deal. It dries very quickly. I'm going to take my decals that I got at the Dollar Tree, as I mentioned, and I'm going to cut them out because that's the only way they're going to fit on there. And it turns out I'm not even going to be able to use the word and because there isn't enough room. And I'm going to trim around the letters, cut off those little lines around the word go and God just to get this to fit. And it takes a little playing, but I do get it to fit. Since I couldn't fit the word and, I decided to use my marker and I would draw a little ampersand, but it came out terrible. So you will see shortly here that I get rid of it. I'm also going to use this faux silver ribbon from the Dollar Tree that my friend Lisa, Dollar Mom, shout out to Dollar Mom, sent to me. Thank you, Lisa. And instead of using hot glue, I am using regular like wood glue, Elmer's glue, whatever. That way I can brush it on and you don't get those little bumps. So there's a tip. Don't use hot glue with that stuff if you don't have to because it's kind of a pain. It gets lumpy. Now I'm going to use my steel chalk paint and I'm going to distress it. And I'm just going to distress it all over the place. I love that look, especially with black. I love the steel color over everything. Now I'm going to go back to my Kills white paint and it takes about 4 coats. And I'm going to cover that ampersand and I'm so glad that I did. And then I'm going to distress right over that spot when I'm done. And now the whole sign blends in together. And I love this sign. It has a hook on the back to hang or it can just sit up by itself like a sitter sign. Oh my gosh, did I just make that up? Let me know what you guys think. This inspiration piece from Kirkland's is adorable. Now, it wasn't outrageously expensive at $16.99, but I thought I could do it for less. I'm going to use one of those little house pieces from Dollar Tree, some paint, some craft sticks, and some Jenga blocks. I'm going to start with 7 Jenga blocks, and I'm going to hot glue them together side to side to make the base. I'm going to paint this base black using the ink paint from Waverly in the chalk paint. Next, I'm going to remove those flowers and the pieces of felt from the top of this house. For some reason, I have the hardest time with this. I use heat, I used a utility knife, you name it. I finally got everything off and then I sanded it. That seems to be the go-to for me, is sanding those things off. And then I cleaned it up with my Ladybug vacuum, and I'll put that link in the description box for you. I am going to paint this with some white acrylic paint. It's from a sample I got at Lowe's for like $1, great deal. And I just love the way it looks when it goes on. I'm going to remove the stickers from the back and I'm going to paint the entire house because I want the back to look nice too. The inspiration piece had some lines on it to kind of look like shiplap. So I'm using my square ruler to do that. I ended up going a little off on one of them, but it's okay. It still looks nice. I don't know what I did or why I did that, but there you go. Now I'm going to take my little sanding sponge from Dollar Tree and I'm going to lightly sand down those lines to dull them a little so that they look a little bit more like just edges of wood. I have these little greenery rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree, and so I need to recreate that wreath that was on the top, and so I cut a bunch of little pieces and just kind of curve them around, and then all you have to do is remove the back and just kind of scrape over the top, and that releases from the plastic, and when you lift it up, it will now be attached to your wood. It's a very, very easy transfer. It looks really nice. I mean, it was $1 and I've used this for so many projects, and I still have a bunch left over. So if you ever see this at Dollar Tree, you should definitely grab it. I used some gingham or buffalo check ribbon, just like the inspiration piece had, although mine is just a little bit bigger squares. And I made a teeny little shoestring bow with it. I'm going to hot glue it right on top, just like theirs was. And then I'm going to trim the tails of the bow so that it looks like the one that I'm trying to recreate. Now the roof was a challenging part for me. Never did well in geometry in school, and this kind of with a little bit of geometry. So I'm using these craft sticks, trying to figure out how long I need to make it, measuring it. I'm using my miter shears, which are awesome. Put the link for that in the description too if you're interested. And I'm going to sand them and try to create a roof line. Now it occurred to me as I was messing with this that I needed to lift up a little higher. So after I figured out the top pieces and kind of the front pieces that would go next to them, I realized I needed to lift it up. So I put a couple of Jenga blocks, one on each side, hot glued it down, and then I'm going to paint it black and start assembling my roof. That solved my problem. Now anywhere that I overpainted a little bit with the black onto the white, I did go back and I touched it up after everything was dry. So if it looks a little messy, it's all taken care of. I'm hot gluing those two front pieces directly onto the Jenga box, and then the other two larger craft stick pieces will go right across the top of the roof and meet at the point. Now I did find there was a little gap. You know, you can't see it in the picture here, but it's there. So I did end up putting in a little teeny piece of a craft stick that I cut, and that fixed it. It raised up the point a little better, and so I just paint that black after I glue it in, and then I can put those pieces of the roof on, and it works perfectly. I really love how this one turned out. It's so cute. There's the original in the picture. Now, I did not film for some reason what I did on my Cricut, which was I looked up fonts to try to match the best I could. And so there are basically 4 different fonts here. And then I added a tail with a black marker to the word family. And I don't remember the name of the fonts. I'm so sorry. I really hope you guys like it. Let me know in the comments. This Kirkland Inspiration decor piece is a really cute buffalo check welcome mat, but for $25 I thought I could do it for less. So I found one of the doormats at Dollar Tree, and I'm not going to give you the full tutorial on how to do your own buffalo check because I have a video where I have a lot of details. I'm going to link that video above in the cards and down below in the description box. And please, after this video and after you watch Nicole's video, feel free to go check that out to get the very specific instructions. It just takes a long time to explain it, so I'm going to let you just watch. I tape it off. There's about 3 or 4 steps to it. Now right now I'm covering up the center because that's where the words welcome are going to be, so that will not be part of the buffalo check pattern, so I want to protect it. So I'm going to go ahead and use the tape, and you create spacers so that you leave that extra row in between. And I'm measuring, but I'm not measuring exactly because I'm looking at the picture and I'm kind of eyeballing it at the same time. So it's a combination of measurements and what looks right to me. And then I figure I can always touch up when I'm all done. Now I do label the tape top and bottom because those pieces go off at one point and then back on, so you want to remember which one was which. I'm using my Kiehl's Primer white paint for this. It's just perfect for this project, and I'm doing several coats so I can get as much coverage as possible. So in a nutshell, you have, in this particular buffalo check pattern, we'll have like black, gray, white, and off-white. It's basically varying shades of a similar color, unless you're mixing two like red and black. But in this case, I'm mostly doing white, gray, and black. Now for the center of the sign, I didn't have the exact color, so I just kind of made this up as I went. So I used a little bit of a cream color, some of the pumpkin from Waverly, and then I added a little bit of burnt umber because it just needed to go a little darker. And I came up with this color, have no idea what to call it, but it's similar to what the picture had. And that's what I'm going to paint that inside rectangle. Now you might notice a couple areas where I'm going to need to do some touch-ups, and I go ahead and do that later, but for now, I'm just going to try to get this center part done. I am going to use my Cricut to create a stencil for the word welcome. I tried to replicate the font that they had in the picture. Again, I'm not sure what the name was, and I'm using some masking tape as transfer tape. I'm going to go ahead and varnish the stencil to my transfer tape and then take that off. Then I'm going to lay it down on top of my mat, try to center it in that center area, and then with using my little weeding tool, I'm going to pull off the transfer tape and leave the stencil behind. Now, if you didn't have a cutting machine, you could certainly use a stencil with different letters, or if you could find one that says welcome, or you could freehand it if you knew how to do that. I'm going to use my ink chalk paint, which is basically black by Waverly, and I'm going to do several coats so that I can get the darkest lettering possible. Now for the super fun part, which is pulling off the stencil. I gotta tell you, I was so surprised how clean the letters were. I thought it was gonna bleed for sure, but it didn't, and it looks amazing. So there's the original up above. Tell me what you think. I feel like it came out pretty good. I'd love to know what you think. Kirkland inspiration piece is so cute. Now I didn't want to do the gold star on top because I didn't want to do a Christmas tree, but I did everything else. But it's $72.99 and I knew I could make it for a couple of dollars. So I've got a picture frame from Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to be using some craft sticks and my white Arteza paint marker, along with 3 colors of paint. There's going to be steel from Waverly. I'm going to use the antique wax from Waverly and the white wax from Waverly. Now I'm going to make a much smaller version of this sign, but I'm still going to copy the basic sign itself. I'm going to be blending these colors until I think I achieve the color that theirs was. I didn't really have one paint that would fit that, so I did a bunch of layering so that I could come up with what I believe to be the right color. In order to create the same pattern that their little wood planks were, I cut a bunch of craft sticks to varying sizes and then kind of put them together like a puzzle. And once I had the right amount, I took them off of that piece of cardboard and I put some glue down, and I added a couple rows at a time so that I could keep everything intact and just recreate as best as I could the look that they did. I used those same 3 colors to layer onto this wood base that I made, and I am going to achieve as close as I can to the color that they use. Since I don't actually know what it is, it's kind of a guessing game just by looking at it. You have to tell me if you think I achieved it. Using my white Arteza paint marker, I am going ahead and drawing the tree now. It's just a stick tree. It doesn't require any special artist skills. It's just, steady hand and doing the best you can. It couldn't be simpler, to be honest with you, and I don't think if it was any more complicated, I could have done it. What do you think? Did I nail it or fail it? I am very happy with how this turned out. I hope you guys like it. Please let me know. My husband loved this one, so it was a win in our house. One funny thing is when I put it together, I realized I had drawn the tree on upside down, so I had to change the hanger around. Easy fix. Thank you so much for watching my video. I truly appreciate it. And I want you to know that you are a blessing to me. If you enjoyed this video, I've got more videos on the screen. Be sure to click one of them next, and I'll see you there. Bye.